Next, we have Dr. Darren Griffin, and he is a professor in the Communication Studies Department here at UA, and he is going to teach us how to encourage students to participate, which, how many of you want to encourage your students to participate, not just sit there, right? So I'm excited about his presentation.
Can y'all hear me? It's loud enough? Okay, awesome. I can tell you guys are really tired and sleepy and all that stuff. I want to start out talking about you. Raise your hand if you've had me for a class. So I'm a nobody here. Okay, congratulations. You get to listen to me for 30 more minutes. You thought you were done with me. Raise your hand if you're new to UA. Congratulations. Welcome to UA. I've been here for 4 years. There's still people that I passed for 4 years who won't even make eye contact with me or say hi to me. So this is me being friendly and saying welcome to UA. It's a wonderful place. I think you'll enjoy it. Congratulations. Raise your hand if you're at GTA. Everybody in here, congratulations. I can remember in 2010 when I became a GTA at the University of Buffalo in this same exact thing, pretty much the same exact format. I can remember it, but I don't remember anything from it. And there's probably one really good reason is that people didn't stimulate me and encourage me and participate with me. There was one thing I do remember, and this gentleman, professor, talked to us about the 10 Commandments of teaching, and I thought it was pretty novel. And really, I was just bored, so I typed it all down. I don't remember any of those 10 Commandments. They're on my PC that was from 2010. It takes like 15 minutes to boot up, so I'm not even going to bother finding it or dealing with it. So I'm here to talk to you about how to get people to participate. And if you remember nothing from today or tomorrow or anything else from this first few weeks of school, as an instructor, you should probably remember this little phrase or this little adage in communication that information is not communication. So if you hand someone a book, you give them information in that channel, and if they don't look at it, it's not going to change the way they think or feel. If they look at it but they don't give it attention, then nothing's going to happen. They have to be stimulated by it. It has to connect with them, right? So that's a book. That's one way to think about it. That's a tangible. But your channel, right, you're going to be in the classroom face-to-face, maybe in an online class. Anyone teaching online? They don't do that to you this early, but they will. Be careful. They'll make you teach online. But you have these different channels that you use to communicate with your students, and your goal should be to communicate with your students, not to just give them information. Because if you just give them information, they're not going to look at it. You were an undergrad. You know that. If they do look at it, it's not going to change the way they think and feel, so you have to communicate. So I want you all to talk to each other and talk about the difference between information and communication and maybe a little working definition, and then we'll do that for 30 seconds, a minute, and then I'll go around with a mic and y'all can tell the room what you think. So go ahead. Have y'all talked to each other yet? Try it. See what happens. Be friends. Go. Information, communication, y'all friends? Not feeling it? Not feeling it? You're working on it? You got it? Marika? You got it? Yeah, I love it. All right, you're in a PhD program in communication. You can't even define it. Should I call on you? Calling you first. I know your name. I know. Chandler. How many classes have we got before? One? Oh, yeah. Hello. All right. I'm glad you're excited. It probably didn't take you long. This isn't that complicated. There's a couple of PhD students in communication in the room, and I'm not going to call on them. Because if you're working on a PhD in communication or a master's in communication, you definitely can't define it. But Chandler's one of my past students. What are you doing?
Getting my master's in organizational communication.
In what?
Organizational communication.
So you won't be able to define communication then. What's communication?
We said that communication kind of involves two people engaging with another person, but information is more like you can read it in a book, or you can get it off the internet, or you can hear it on the news or something like that. So it's not necessarily two people.
I'm going to fixate on the first part. It's between two people's communication. I didn't like your information one. That's okay. Good try. What's your name?
Sabrina.
Sabrina. What about information? Did y'all talk about information?
Yeah, we did a little bit. So we talked about information can be very vague and very broad, and it's the way that you use information is how you communicate. with
So
it.
they're kind of connected.
They are connected.
I like it. I'll give it to you. Chandler? No, she didn't like that. It's okay. Joking. Got someone in the back? Yeah, we nailed it. Oh, wait, we'll start here.
So I just said that information, it's just out there, but communication is engaging.
Information's data. Data's just there. Everything's information, right? Like the color of the walls in here, that's information. Doesn't mean anything unless I can communicate to you that it's important, right? Information's just out there. I like that. You're doing your PhD in information.
Geology.
It's information.
I like rocks.
We think information is the facts and what you say, and communication is how you present the information.
People say that all the time. It's the fact, right? So the data, the fact, right? It's information, but it doesn't really matter unless you can make it important to someone. It's between people. You can make it relevant, right? You can highlight it. So your job as a GTA is to communicate information, but they're not the same thing. So student participation can be other than just you asking your students a question from the reading or something that's going on in the discussion in the class. That is a form of participation, and if that's all you do, it's probably not going to go really well. I just did that. You saw how well that went. Okay, how can you get your students to participate? Talk to a different person. Make it more awkward. Talk to the person behind you or in front of you. Talk to someone for 30 seconds about how you can get your students to participate besides questions. Aaron. Who else do I know? Who else do I know? Y'all want to answer this one? No? It's all right, I'll find someone. Who wants to do the next one? You looked at me. I know, but it's just here. It's on whenever you're ready. I'll call you. What's your name? Epiphany? What's that? I appreciate it. What's your name? Reception. I'm teaching it. Drop them those other ones they say you need to take it later. Yeah, you're a teacher. And you can take it too. However, you're an emerging scholar. You're full-time grad student. Take exception. They will elect you. Yeah, it'll count towards the 500. Take it together. There's only 5 people in it. I can have 10. Right now, leave. All right, what do you got? We got Epiphany had something. Did you come up with something? Yeah. Okay.
We said that getting students engaged can be like doing videos and like getting them up out of their seats, talking to their neighbors, kind of like what we're doing.
Like jumping jacks.
Yeah, all that kind of
Getting
stuff.
them going. Getting them up out of their seats, getting them to do something new and novel.
Yeah.
What else did you say?
Oh, we said instead of just using like text all the time, use videos.
Oh yeah,
audio,
text sucks.
stuff.
Use other multimedia formats. There you go, be creative. Who do we have?
We were talking about sending students out into the community and doing field research.
Experiential learning.
Exactly.
Yes.
Making notes and bringing it back to the
That's participation.
classroom.
And then they'll want to talk about it because it's real to them, right? It has intrinsic motivation, which is the last speaker was talking about intrinsic motivation. Talk about things that are important to them and do things that they care about. That's good. Is there a mic somewhere else? I got one. Got one over there? We got like 30 mics.
Okay, I'll be very honest with you guys. So we talked about where we're from, and we didn't really discuss
Where are
that.
you from?
Korea,
Korea.
Taiwan, India. So we were making friends.
Oh, but you don't have any ways to participate? Have your students talk to each other. Have your students talk to each other. I like it.
I said this. I mean, what we're doing right now is a good example of how to get your students to communicate with each
Because
other.
they may not raise their hand and talk directly to the professor or the instructor, but they're going to share ideas and then one person in the group, right?
Right.
Good. That was meta. That's why we do this, but I like that you caught on to it. Do we have a mic? We don't have a mic.
Yep.
I can hear you. Oh, we got a mic. Pass. Here you go.
Okay, we talked about, depending on how big your class is, You can do like role play exercises, so you can have like a specific topic and then they will have to brainstorm on how to relate it to real life situations. And you also brought up bringing in current events. So depending on whatever you all have been talking about, you can say next class, bring in the current event and let's relate it to what we just talked about.
Yeah. While we're brainstorming here, current events. What are some current events that people could not resist talking about? American Nazis? People are going to talk about them, right? Talk about cool stuff. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. They did the bait and switch. They're like, hey, you got 30 minutes, because last year they gave me 15, and the only thing I could do in 15 minutes was like lay on the table up here. They said they remember that. I didn't work that in. But then they were like, oh no, we want to do question and answer, so they made my presentation 20, and I've already burned 15, and we hadn't done anything yet. All right, sorry to rush away, but current events, Charlotte, NAFTA negotiations. Students are going to talk about that? Yo, business students will, right? So a little audience analysis. All right, I asked current PhD students who I know are superstars. I asked them last year, what do they do to get their students engaged? The first one, I like it the best, be human. That sounds crazy, but there's people in here right now not engaging and being on their phone and not being human and connecting with me. So be human and connect with your students. Learn their names quickly, because that shows that you're human and you care. Be patient. Use silence. Warm call your students. I actually, this semester, for the first time in my teaching career, in my syllabus, have a statement about warm calling, because I'm really bad about cold calling my students. They're on their phone, and I know their name because I follow that advice, but then I call on them to participate, and they get all nervous, and then it makes them feel negative about the class. So now I warm call them, starting with the syllabus. I say, I will call on you in this class. I expect you to participate. You're warned. And then I'll remind them that I'm going to call on them, give them time to prepare. But cold calling works too, because you're still engaging your students. Talk about current events. Ask the right questions, not too broad. Build trust. Use technology. So some researchers have done some work on this, and they talked about ways to engage your students. It says required graded participation. I actually don't agree with that, and I don't like that format, but some students, the only way they're going to get excited about the NAFTA agreement is if you tell them that you're going to grade them based on their participation. So certain topics are just more conducive to needing grades. So I wanted to show you a good way to respond to a student. A student says something, your verbal and nonverbal reaction to student participation is going to encourage it further in your classroom. See if we can get this to work. So a student says something in class, you get non-verbally excited. I could come up with a lot of those, but it was easier to find the really negative ones, so don't do some of these. A student says something in class, they think they're being really smart. My favorite part is at the end, the woo! Think about it. They say something in class. I'll skip this one. I don't know what it is, but I'll skip it. I said I was going to skip it, and someone in the front went, oh, man, so I guess I'm not going to skip it. Student involvement. So those are some pretty easy examples of how not to respond to your students, right? You could say something negative that would make them feel like they shouldn't participate, or you could show them non-verbally that they shouldn't participate. So a couple more research findings. Make a debate. When I was in Buffalo, New York, best way to get my students to participate, talk about gun control. If you did that here, it wouldn't work because they're all for guns, so there'd be no debate. But anyway, just know where you are when you create your debates. I want to give you some of my own advice for the sake of time. The most important things, I think, are the communication things, right? Use an audience-centered approach. Get outside of your own head and get in their heads. Think about their lives. Think about what they know and don't know, right? What's important to them. If you take an audience-centered approach to teaching your class and to trying to build participation, you'll think, what did they do last night? Easy, they were drinking at a bar. But anyway, some of your students are different and they don't do that, right? And the way to get to know them is to ask them, have them fill out the little information cards. So teach like a champion, share information in a way that connects with their experience. Being mindful is also being audience-centered. You'll probably learn about verbal and nonverbal immediacy. Did you learn about that? reduce distance, even if it's psychological, between your students. And I think a really big one, and it worked for me in my teaching career so far, is be your own critic. Be open to the fact that you suck, but try to fix that suckiness. So don't be so hard on yourself, right? But allow yourself to make mistakes, but don't just make them and be like, I suck, and then just move on. Be like, I'm not good at this, or these are things I need to improve on. Ask your mentors for help. Be critical every class and write down something you could have done differently, and then implement it in the future, and that'll help you be a better instructor. Question and answer time.
Yes, Q&A. Hands raised. I want some juicy questions.
One question I had would be for a class where there's a discussion element, but you have students who are particularly introverted. Is it too confusing to have different participation options your students can engage in to still get the same grade? So if someone really hates talking in class, you know, give another option that they can take to still get the points?
That's a really good question. I think that my immediate response is that's the reason I don't like the advice of the researchers, right? And just like research isn't the truth, it's just one finding, and they found in their study that by giving the grades, it improves people's motivation because they're getting an extrinsic reward. I try to use the opposite and use the intrinsic rewards, right? So the intrinsic reward would be talk about things they care about, and if they're not participating, find out why. So communicate with them, maybe on an individual level, and then maybe talk about topics they would want to without the grades. But I think you're always going to have students that have different reasons for not wanting to participate. I've had students of all walks of life, and I've had some students tell me, never call on me. Some of them have said it verbally, some of them said it in writing, and some of them have said it non-verbally. I know where they're sitting in the room in the last furthest back corner. They never make eye contact, so I don't call them. I call them every single person, but never call them that student. And then I finally had a chance to talk with a student. I said, you've noticed I haven't called on you? Yeah. You know why? And they're like, no. I'm like, because you don't want to be called on, right? So if you don't do the grading thing, it works just by reading the audience, being audience-centered. But if it's the grading thing, I think you bring up a good point, having an alternative way. And I think the best way to know what those alternatives would be to ask your students, what do y'all want to do for participation points besides just talking in class? And I think some of the ideas earlier would fit those. It's a good question.
So you brought up warm calling and cold calling on students before. I've never heard those terms. What are they?
That's a good question, right? It's intuitive to me, right? Because I know it and I read about it and I think about it. The best way to explain it would be thinking of a sales situation. So I could call somebody on the phone and introduce myself and then tell them that I have the greatest new product that they've never heard of. That person's going to be a little bit set back. They're not going to really listen. They're going to be on the defensive. You know the feeling when someone calls you. That would be a cold call situation. A warm call situation would be if I'm trying to reach you and pitch something to you. I do research about you. I figure out someone else who knows you, and I ask them to introduce me to you. They've warmed up the introduction. You expect me to call now. You know I'm going to call you about a certain thing. You've already heard about it. You already Googled it. And so now when I call you, your defenses are down and your emotions are different. So take that and put it into a classroom context. If the students know from the syllabus or from the beginning of that lecture, I'm going to call on every single person in this room, or I'm going to call on you at random, or we're going to talk about this thing, you'd be warming them up to it. Because imagine you're lecturing for 15, 20 minutes and all of a sudden you decide to call on somebody. Their emotional state would be different than if they were prepared or they were like warned. Let's call it warning calling. That's a good question. Thank you. All good questions. That's it? That's it? Cool. That means it was so clear you don't have any questions. That's awesome. Thank you for having me. Congratulations on your gig.
Thank you, Dr. Griffin.
Yeah, the last thing I want to say is you probably didn't have time to take notes on that. I get that. If this is something that sticks with you, like the teaching 10 Commandments, and you want it, you can email me. My name is Darren Griffin. You'll find me on Google, and they're going to post the link to my Prezi on some kind of repository.
Workshop page. So go to the graduate school workshop for new GTAs, and it will be there along with the other materials.